Hello, and welcome to another Words in the World tutorial on PsychoPy3. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a typing task to your experiment. I'm going to use the same lexical decision task that we were using in the first three videos. Again, if you have any questions about anything in this video or even outside the scope of this video, my email is at the bottom of the screen right here. So what we're going to do is, so we're adding a typing task to a lexical decision experiment. We don't really have any reason to make our participants type the non-words that we're presenting. So we want to add some code that will make sure that they only have to type the real words. Then we're going to add some code that will actually allow the typed text to be displayed on the screen. And finally, we're going to fine-tune all of our code so that, for example, the participants can capitalize letters or add spaces or delete mistakes using a backspace. All right, so let's go back to our lexical decision experiment from before. All right, so we have our instructions, we have our fixation point with its variable duration, and we have our trial. We have our stimulus display that's going to be showing our targets, and we have our response. So I'm going to add something in here that will make sure that the next routine that I'm going to add in only runs if the stimulus is a real word. All right, so I'm going to start out at the beginning of my experiment. I want to create this variable, and I'm going to call it typing routine. I'm going to make that equal to true. So this is basically going to be a Boolean value, meaning that it can only be true or false. It only has two possible values. I'm going to add that in. Now, at the end of this routine, at the end of the lexical decision routine, I want to check what the stimulus type of the target was. So I'm going to say if, well, first I should have a look at my conditions file. So in my conditions file, I have this column with the header stim type. So remember, as we're going through the different trials of the experiment, the value of stim type will be equal to whatever the value in the row that's being run is. So for example, if goldfish is the trial that's being selected, so if it's row number 5, stim type will be equal to word. So I can use this right now. Where was I? Here I am. So if stim type is logically equal to non-word, then my typing routine value will be equal to false. In any other case, well, there's only one other case, and that's if stim type is equal to non-word, then I want typing routine is equal to word, then I want typing routine to be equal to true. So basically, it's going to check, is this stim type a non-word? If it's non-word, then typing routine is going to be equal to false. All right. So that should set us up nicely to create our typing routine. So I'm going to create a new routine here. It's going to be called typing. I'm going to add this in here. Oh, actually, this shouldn't be called trial. This should be called lexical decision task. There we go. That makes a lot more sense. All right, so here is our typing routine. Now, really, I'll say what I need is I need to be able to detect what the participants are typing, and I need to display that on the screen. So I want to make sure that this duration is set to infinite. I want this to be displayed as long as the routine is running. And here, I'm going to add this variable input text. Now, as participants type, I want this input text to update. I need it to change whenever they've typed whenever they type something new or delete something. So I can't have this be constant. I also can't have it check every repeat. This will only check if they type something across different routines, which is not what I need. I need to check every frame. So basically what this means is that every frame, it's going to check what is the value of input text and update the screen accordingly. So I'm going to leave that like that, and I'm happy to have it in the middle of the screen. One other thing I'd like to add is just just some arrows. What this will do is just, well, instead of seeing a blank screen, there's going to be some arrows kind of indicating where the text is going to appear. It's just going to make it easier for the participants. So I'm going to add that. All right. Now the rest will all be code. So from the very beginning of the experiment, I want to set input text equal to an empty string. Just like that. Okay, so now at the beginning of the routine, I want to decide if I want this routine to actually run or not. So I have that Boolean value of typing routine. So if typing routine is equal to false, actually, then I don't want this routine to run at all. So I'm going to use this value that's set already by PsychoPy, which is continue routine. I want continue routine to be equal to false. So what that will do is that, there's some lines of code built into the experiment that's constantly checking to see if continue routine is equal to true or not, and if it's equal to false, then it just ends the routine. So that's actually all I need to do there. So if typing routine is equal to true, that means we've got a real word. Now I actually want to I want to let the participants type and update that to the screen. So the way that we do that is a little weird. Okay, actually I should start with this. I'm going to start with this this variable, these keys. And I want these keys to be equal to whatever is typed into the screen, and typed into the keyboard. So we have this this function event.getKeys, and that's just going to detect whatever the keys are. I get all these things from the PsychoPy3 documentation. So here there's this thing, PsychoPy event get keys, and you can, if you're ever curious, I guess, about some of these things, you can go to the PsychoPy3 website and go to documentation and the reference manual. And that's going to have has all these goodies that you can look at in your own time. But I'm not going to go over all of that right now. Where was I? There we go. So I've got these keys. So these keys is going to be equal to whatever is being detected. And after it gets detected, it gets deleted again. So these keys will kind of stay empty and only get filled up when it's detecting a key press. So that's really useful because that means that basically I want to check whenever these keys is equal to anything other than 0, or the length of these keys is equal to anything other than 0, and it will only ever be 1, really. I'm going to set another variable that's equal to 0. Yeah. Okay. So essentially, I want to constantly be checking whether or not a key has been pressed. And whenever a key is pressed, I want things to happen. So if I is equal to 0, if I'm not pressing any keys, n will also be equal to 0, because this won't detect any keys, therefore the length of this will be 0. So these will be equal, and so this code won't run. But as soon as a key is pressed, then n will suddenly be equal to 1, and n will be more than I, or in this case, I will be less than n. And then all of the code under here will run. All right, so the first thing I want to do is, well, I want to give myself a way to end this routine. So I'm going to do that with by pressing enter. So if these keys, so again, I is going to be equal to 0, and 0 is always the first value in an array or in a list if it's Python. So here, this is basically saying if the key that has been pressed is equal to return, then I'm going to use that same thing I did before. continue routine is equal to flas, it's equal to false. Now I need to add an additional command in here. This is break, and this will break out of the while loop. Otherwise, you can end up cycling through forever. And I've made the mistake so many times. All right, so and if it's not enter, I want input text to be equal. Actually, I want to add to input text whatever the key was that was pressed. So I'm going to take the key that was pressed and add that to my empty string. So remember, this string is empty, and it's going to get bigger every time that we type another letter. Now, I want to add one more thing in here, because if I don't add something in here right now, whatever I type in one trial is going to stay. So my input text, let's say I type the word ballroom, and then I go to the next routine, input text is still going to be equal to ballroom, and that's going to appear on the screen. And I don't want that. So at the beginning of every routine, I want to reset input text equal to an empty string. I could do the same thing at the end. It doesn't really matter. All right, so that looks good. Oh yes, so this is how you escape the while loop. So if you don't add this in, then it will keep looping through forever, because and your your program will crash, because I will always be less than n, and it will just go infinitely through these loops, and you'll never be able to exit. So basically what this does is when we detect a keystroke, n becomes equal to 1. So then that means I is now less than 1. 0 is less than 1, so I is less than n, and we run all this code. So first it checks, is the key that was pressed return or enter? And if that's true, then this all ends. If it's not enter, then we're going to add that to the string, and then we're going to make I equal to 1. We're going to add 1 to I. So now I is 1 and n is 1. So this is no longer true, so we exit the while loop. And then because this is each frame, it's going to update again every frame, and then everything will be equal to 0 again. So let's see if this actually works. I move this to the top. If I move it to the top, that just makes I'm not exactly sure when this is really important to do, but I usually just add the code at the top. All right, let's save that and cross our fingers and run it and see what happens. Okay. So far, so good. All right, so that is a non-word. So I'm going to press L, and it's taking me to the next trial. That's great. So now this is goldfish. This is a real word. So hopefully this is, if I press A, it's going to bring me to the typing screen. Here we go. And, oh, I completely forget what the word was now. It was like seabird, maybe? Ooh, okay. Oh, okay, so it looks like I made a typo. So right here, it's telling me which line of code there's an issue with, and it's nice enough to show me what exactly is in that line of code, and it's saying that these key is not defined. And that's right, I never defined anything called these key. It should be these keys. All right. That's actually good, because it means that there wasn't anything wrong with the code that was above that. And my other code here that was bringing me to, that was kind of canceling the typing routine was working, so that's great. Let's try it again and see if we can't start typing some stuff. All right. Not a word. Not a word. Come on, give me a word. There we go, goldfish. All right, let's try typing goldfish. There we go. And I'm going to press enter. Awesome. That's not a word. Now, I'm going to show you one of the issues now. So now we're kind of getting to the fine-tuning stage. So blackboard is a word. Now, what if I type black and then I add an extra K, and I'm like, oh, I made a mistake. I need to delete that K. So I press the backspace key. And that is just going to take backspace and update input text with the word backspace. The same as if I press the space bar, it's going to add space. If I press the shift key to try and capitalize something, it's just saying left shift. If I add the right shift, it's also saying left shift. Oh, that's weird. That should be right shift. Oh, whatever. Well, so this is clearly unacceptable. And when I press escape, it's also just updating escape rather than letting me exit from the experiment. So I press enter. That kind of gets me out of that, and I'm going to press escape and out of there. Okay, so where am I? Here we go. So I have to go back in here, and I need to deal with some of these things. I want to make sure that when I'm pressing different buttons, it's actually doing what I want it to do. So the first thing I'll do is add something about backspace, because that's really important. We want to be able to correct our mistakes. So if these keys is equal to backspace, I want to take input text, and I want input text to then be equal to the entire string from the very beginning, so from 0 until the very end. But I don't know how long input text is necessarily. But luckily, lists in Python allow for indexing. So I can just go -1, and that's going to mean that I want input text to equal the string from 0 until until the character second from the end. So that means, for example, if I had let's just say goldfish was my example. So if I got into goldfish and then I pressed F one more time by accident, G is going to be 0, O is position 1, D is position 2, L is position 2, D is position 3, F is position 4, and the last F is position 5. And what this is saying is that I want to take this input text and make it equal to 0 to, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, from 0 to 4. And so that's going to take just these. And so basically what it's doing is cutting off the last item in the string, or the last letter. So I just do that. So that's going to give the, what backspace should do. It should delete the thing at the end. And then I want to do my little I plus equals 1. And that's going to exit me from the loop. And it's going to wait for the next button press, basically. Okay. I should actually probably have this be elif. Else if these... Oh, look, I did the same thing again here. These keys is equal to space, although in my current list of stimuli, I don't have anything that includes a space. Let's just add it in. If you're doing like sentence typing, this will be important. So input text plus equals, and we just want to add a space. And then we're going to do our I plus 1, which will escape us from the loop. All right. What else do we want? Oh yes, shift. So again, my stimuli don't include any capital letters, but we may as well, if this equals, these keys equals L shift, or this means or. All right, so this is actually a little bit tricky. So how am I going to capitalize a letter? Well, I'm going to take these keys. So whatever was just, oh, sorry. I don't know what I'm going to capitalize yet. So this is where I need to add something in called I'm just going to call it a shift flag. Shift flag is going to be equal to true. And then I'll jump out of my loop. So basically, if this shift or this shift is pressed, then this shift flag is going to become equal to true. And I need to add this in beforehand, otherwise it's going to get angry at me that shift flag doesn't have a value. So shift flag will equal to true. Sorry, this should be equal to false as a default. So whenever it detects shift, it will change the shift flag to true. And then I need to have something else down here where if shift flag is equal to true, these keys is equal to. Okay, so this is the kind of tricky part. Where was my thing? Okay. So basically, the way that we can capitalize our letters is by understanding something about Unicode. So Unicode is just is what is used by Python. Sorry, there's a I'm not explaining this very well. Let's get back in here. So there's a function called character. So this using this function, I can basically select a character using numbers. So for example, if I wanted to have these keys equal to the letter M, for example, then I could go down to the Latin lowercase alphabet and select Latin small letter M, and that is number 109. So if I wanted to have every time you press shift, these keys is equal to M, I could have 109 there. And this is basically going to be equal to the letter M. Now, the neat thing about Unicode is that if we look at A, for example, a lowercase a is equal to 97, and an uppercase a is equal to 65. And the same is true of like a capital Z, 90, is sorry, and lowercase z is 122. So all of the lowercase versus capital letters are exactly 32, have a difference of exactly 32 between them. That means that if I want to capitalize a letter, I can just call this character. So first I want to take the number. So basically this is going to equal M. And if I did this, it would be equal to 109. What I can do is take these keys, I. So this will basically return the number. So these keys by default will have lowercase as the value. So let's say that I typed M. The value is going to be equal to 109. And then what I can do is minus 32 from that. So what this basically says is that if this shift flag is true, then we're going to get the value. So if it's M, it's going to be 109. And from that, we minus 32, and then we return the character at this new number value. And if that's 109 minus 32, it's going to equal 77, which is equal to a capital M. And so that is the really nice roundabout way we have of capitalizing letters using Python. Luckily, when we are going to do this in JavaScript later, there's just a function that you can call, and it's a lot easier. All right, so that's that. So hopefully, if the shift flag is true, then it will capitalize our letter, and then that's going to be displayed onto the screen. And after we've done that, we can actually turn the shift flag off and make it equal to false again, because it's done its work. All right, that looks good for now. All right, let's see if any of this works. All right, so I'm going to click OK, go back to my experiment, and now I'm going to realize that I made a mistake. If these keys is equal to L shift, what's wrong with this? Let's have a look again. If these keys equal to L shift. I don't think it's the spaces that are giving an issue here. Let's just remove right shift for now. Maybe it's an issue with or maybe I'm not using that correctly. Okay, let's just give that a try. Okay. All right, so that's working normally. That's skipping me past the typing routine. All right, let's see if I can make a mistake and correct it. Okay, so it's not letting me do that. Input text plus minus that. It's now out of range. Okay. Why is it even allowing me to get to that point? Input text is equal to that. Let's try that again. Okay, moon. All right, so it's not letting me do a backspace, and it's saying that the list is out of range. Okay. Oh, that's right. So basically, what was happening was I was running this every time. So it's even if it was detecting a backspace, then I was deleting the character, but then it was trying to add another thing at the end. So I basically just need to add this in. Okay, that should work. In the future, I think I should do the cooking show trick where I prepare all the code, make sure it works, and then show you. All right, so goldfish. So we've got gold. All right, so now it's letting me delete things just fine. All right, so my delete key is working. Black. Oh no, I made so many mistakes, and I can delete all of them. I didn't. Now let's check if my shift is working. Okay, there we go. So I can capitalize blackboard, even though I have no reason to do that. And there we go. I can capitalize whatever I want. Look at that. Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad this all worked out. Cool. Let's get out of there. All right, so now we have this nice typing component that allows us to do all sorts of fun stuff. Another thing I should probably add in, maybe I'll add it in next time. What I've found is that once you're in this this typing loop, that you're no longer able to exit the experiment by using escape. I forget what the command for exiting the experiment is. I think I can probably find it in here. Oh, maybe I'll just show you what this is. So if you ever want to look at the code, just inspect all of the code that allows these components to run, you can click this icon up here, and it's going to compile the script. So this is actually the script that's running. This is what's going on behind the scenes. Is there an exit experiment? Oh yeah, there we go. It's a core quit. And you can see this is like one of the things that it's usually, so if this event.getKeys, so they're constantly looking for whether or not escape is being pressed or not. If escape is pressed, then they quit the experiment. So I can just add this into my little loop, and then that will allow participants to withdraw from the experiment even if they're mid-typing. So I could just add this in here and say else if these keys .I is equal to escape, then I'm just going to core.quit. There we go. Let's just double check and make sure that's working. It might seem a little nitpicky, but just from a participant's point of view, you want to make sure that your participants are able to easily withdraw from the experiment at any time, especially if they're going to be doing this experiment at home. All right, so that's not a word, not a word. I'm getting really familiar with these words. There we go. See bird, and then I decide, oh my gosh, I've had enough of this. I want to quit. Oh, I need to do escape, not ESK. And so you can see that, so I'm pressing the escape key and it's not letting me escape. I'm trapped in the experiment. We can't have that. So I'm going to go down and update that to escape. And that's going to let me escape from the experiment anytime that I want. All right, great. Well, everything went pretty smoothly, as about as smooth as I can hope. So what we've done is made sure that we're only typing real words. We can display words that we're typing, and we fine-tuned it so that it's doing exactly what we want it to. In the next video, we're going to start looking at how we can add different information to the data file, because again, for this typing component, we're not using any of the custom component, any of the default pre-made builder components. So there's actually no data being collected at the moment. So if we went back and looked at our data file, it would be empty. It wouldn't show any of the things that were being typed. So next time we'll work on collecting data and what kind of data we can collect by kind of adding different custom code components. And maybe in a video after that, then we'll convert everything into JavaScript and then have it run online. All right. Well, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.